are going to record this today to make sure that we share this with other people, but we're really glad that you guys are all with us today. And we appreciate your patience while we get this technical stuff figured out. So again, I'm Dena Ratliff Warren. Been with KDLA for about a year now as their staff executive advisor and a grant administrator. Still fairly new to my role, so I'm still learning a lot. So I guess before we start, I want to just recognize this QR code in the bottom right-hand position on the slide. This will take you to a Grants Made Easy toolkit that we'll be talking a little bit more about, and it will have some resources in there for you that you can use throughout your grant writing processes. This slide presentation is in here as well. So, all right, so to get started, I want to make sure everybody's aware that we have a grants management system now that we use to administer and manage all of our grants that KDLA produces. One of the best ways to do that, to find the grants management system, is go to our website. And this is KDLA website. If you go to library support on this field right here, on this line right here, and then click on funding for libraries. And then if you see it, under funding for libraries, there is a link, a highlighted link down there that will take you to the grants portal. So let me grab this arrow here. All right, so this is what our grants portal looks like. That has the KDLA logo at the top, and then it will list all of the grants below. For every grant, there is a guideline that should be attached to that. If you click on the drop-down arrow, it will show you all of the grant guidelines. And I would encourage you to read those guidelines before you start applying, because it will save you a lot of time in the long run. It will make sure that your project fits this grant and that you can do it within the timeline. Because I'd hate for you to apply for it and then get rejected just because of simply that it's not gonna, the project doesn't fall within these the guidelines of the grant. So, and then you simply press apply. And what that's going to do is it's not going to take you to the application right away if you don't have an account. It will guide you in the process of setting up an account. You basically, like any other online platform, you'll just sign up, you'll put in your email address and create a platform. And then the second step, you're going to want to verify your email address. And you want to make sure that your email, you've saved this notifications@email.submittable.com address in your contacts to make sure that the email does not go to junk mail or trash or spam. So once your account is created, you go back into Submittable and you can apply. It's just an online application form, pretty easy to manage. And what's great about this is that if you have a couple of people that you want to work on the application with, or you want somebody to edit your application, or the grant requires a director's signature, you can add collaborators at the top of your application. You just click on manage collaborators, and then send an email invite to the person that you need to collaborate with. So that's a pretty cool feature, I think, of the application. So once you complete your application and you submit it, you have a dashboard in the grants management system where you can manage your grants that you applied for. And this is what that would look like. Says my submissions. You can see over on the right here, here's your account information. If you click on the drop down arrow, this is where you would manage your profile information and also your login information. So if you see over here on this field, this line right here, this is your submissions. So this is a test dashboard. This person has applied for the special project grant and the KDLA partnership grant. So over here, you know when the application was due. You can continue the application, preview it, or delete it. So you can also go into your drafts and see the draft of the application. So the system will save your draft. If you tell it to save, it will save it. And you want to make sure that you do that frequently so you don't lose your work. So if we click on this special project grant field right here, you'll see a screen like this. It will show all of the activity on this particular grant, like when you applied for it, any communication that you had with us. It will, any reports that you submitted. If you click on the message field, it will show only the correspondence that you've had with us about this grant. If you click on the form field, that is where you're going to see any additional reports that you need to fill out for this. Those reports won't show up until KDLA emails those to you, but any reports that you fill out and save, those this is where you would go to find the hard copy of that. What's great about this as well is if you go into the notes field, this is where you can manage your grant. So if you have some activity on your grant that you want to make note of, whether it's dates or times or expenses, you can put those in the notes field so you can keep track of it. I think that's one of the hardest things about grants is just keeping on top of things. And then you can view your awards and payments on this following tab. Of course, you can download your projects, you can remove submissions, and I think most importantly, you need to know that you can transfer your project as well to another staff member. So if you're getting ready to leave the library, or if you are transferring project management over to somebody, you can transfer that project until your records will continue. If you could also contact KDLA and we can help you with this. So, and lastly, Submittable provides all of the technical support for this and login and password help. I don't have anything to do with that at all, just because of privacy issues and everything. So if you do have issues with any technology or password login information, you click on this little orange drop down arrow down here and it will open up a help desk where you can type in your questions. You can also message them directly down here. So all right, before we go on, does anybody have any questions about the grants management system? Okay. If you do, go ahead and put it in the chat box and we'll try to answer your questions as we go. All right, so KDLA provides a lot of grants. And I want to briefly go over this just to make you guys aware of all the things that KDLA does. First of all, there is a public library facilities construction grant. This is mandated by state law that the state government provides construction funds for libraries. Our legislators decided not to add any additional funds to this grant this last fiscal year. And so there will not be a grant available for probably 2 years. So, but I'm hoping that we will be able to start the process in July. We will put out a request for notice of funding proposals. And so if you are currently in need of renovation or construction projects that will expand your library, this grant could help you out, and you need to start planning that now. So certification is also mandated by state law for full-time library staff, and so we support that through our continuing education grant and our conferences grant. The continuing education grant actually is open right now. It closes the 15th, which is tomorrow. And this is where you would, the director would apply for funding up to $5,000 depending on the size of your library. This would help fund classes for staff member for certification, conferences. Maybe you want to hire a consultant to bring in and train your staff on some certain skills. This would be the grant that you could apply for. We also have started a conferences grant. Our Commissioner, Denise Lyons, is really trying to get our libraries and our library staff and directors out into the community and out of state to get training and to come back with new ideas and new inspiration. So this conferences grant is open now until the 15th for the 2024 cycle. Directors have been applying for this to send staff members to the ARSOL conference and the ABOS conference. So if you're interested in that, you need to apply very quickly. We will also be issuing a 2025 conferences grant in late fall. This will help to fund subsequent conferences throughout the year. So we also try to help support individuals in their undergraduate classes who are getting degrees. So the scholarships for undergraduate classes and the tuition reimbursement grants, those are managed by Alicia McGrath, and the timelines on those are different. So you'll have to keep an eye out for those on the director's listserv. We also started a special project grant this last year, and that is over. It was pretty amazing. We were able to fund about $90,000 in projects across the state, anywhere from purchasing new computers. One library got a LED light bright set, a large one, to literacy projects. So this is probably one of my favorite grants that we offer, because it allows you guys to be creative and innovative and really helps meet your needs. We also provide two partnership grants. One is called Science and Play to Go. We work with the Kentucky Science Center to provide this. Many of you are aware of the SIP to Go exhibit that travels around to different counties and provides STEM activities and curriculum for people who visit the library. We provide them with about $150,000 each year, and the Kentucky Science Center will put out applications for people who want to apply for that. I believe they had enough libraries signed up from last year to continue on with this year. So they should be posting their library schedule soon of where the exhibits will be. So we also partner with the Kentucky Humanities for the Primetime Family Reading Grant. And this is a 6-week program where storytellers and scholars, reading specialists come into your library and provide reading help for struggling readers in the elementary school age. And the library doesn't receive money for this, but they receive roughly about $5,000 in programs and services. And this is run through Kentucky Humanities. I think their application was open, and I think it's closed, and they've selected their libraries. So be looking for that, and that usually comes available in July or August of every year. All right. If there's any questions, please put them in the chat. If not, we're going to move on to grant writing and some things that make it a little bit difficult. So just through my research and talking with people, and through my own experience as a director at Trimble County Public Library for 7 years, and a lot of my time was spent trying to find funding for projects. And these are some of the top things that I struggled with, and that I found in the research, was that it's so hard to find the time to sit down and to write grants and to find them, because you're so spread thin in other areas. And then trying to find the right funding, the project that fits your timeline, but also will fund your special project. I get a lot of requests of, hey, we need a new book bill. Do you have any grants that will fund that? And unfortunately, that is a really hard one to find funding for. So we're going to talk about some ideas of how to get around that. And then, trying to think of ways to make your application competitive, because there's so many other libraries and organizations that are applying for these grants. You really don't want to go through all that work and then of writing the grant and then you're not funded. So we're going to talk about ways you can increase your chances of getting funded. And then I think just getting started is one of the hardest things. So we're going to talk a little bit more about that, how to get started. Like, and the thing is you need to really start thinking about what your plan is before you start writing. And I have created a grant planning tool in our toolkit. And hopefully, let me see if I can get over there. Share content. I've clicked on the wrong thing. How do I get to this? Stop sharing. Okay. Okay. Thank you. Awesome. Okay, hopefully you guys can see this. So this is a project grant planning template that you could use for grants, or even just project planning. So anytime that you want to create a new project that you want to share with your board or your fiscal court or with another organization, this is kind of goes through the process of these are the things that you need to answer and work out. And we're not going to go through every detail of this, but it's pretty extensive. It goes through, naming your project, the timeline, your needs, your project justification. How is your project going to be designed and implemented? What outcomes are you looking for, and how are you going to evaluate your project? You really should have a good idea about your budget before you start, and then who's going to be your supporting partnerships, and how are you going to continue this project in the future. So, all right. So then I just need to stop sharing. Is that right? Okay. And then share application screen, share files. Oh. Okay. Thank you for your patience on this. So we practiced this yesterday and it's still foreign to me. So I appreciate your patience and sticking with me. So the planner is a really good tool. Start with that. Don't start writing your application before you do that. So also when you're brainstorming through your project and creating it, you want to think, okay, innovation, because funders really like innovation, right? And sometimes we get bogged down in that, thinking, oh, well, I don't want to create something new, but it's not always about creating something new, okay? Sometimes it's about tackling a problem creatively and coming up with a different solution that nobody's tried before. Sometimes it's adaptive. Your program would be adaptive, where, okay, you start with a project idea and it changes over time as your people learn and grow, and or service changes and grow, that adapts over with your needs. Maybe it's leveraging new technology that your library doesn't have. Funders really love when a project increases accessibility, especially to populations who are underserved and underfunded. So think about that with your project. Don't be afraid to experiment with new things or try something new, especially if it's creative. Funding organizations are usually okay with trying something new, especially if you can show that your library has a history of managing projects like this. So another thing funders like to see is it scalable and replicable. So for example, you instituted some training for, I don't know, family literacy, and then you, within your grant project, you show that you're going to create some pamphlets or some toolkits that you can share with other libraries to the resources that you created throughout this project. So funders really want to see their dollars spread and go as far as they can. So replicating it and sharing it with other organizations is a win. So you need to think about that when you're writing your grant. Just remember, you have a lot of grant support. So I'm here. I not only administer grants, but if you have questions about any grant that you're writing, or if you need me to review a grant proposal, I'm happy to do that. I need at least 2 weeks ahead of time to make sure that I can read your proposal well and give you appropriate feedback. Make sure you're relying on your volunteers and your community, especially your friends groups and your foundations. There's a lot of older people in the community that want to be useful, and they have great skills and can help you with grant writing. Even if they don't take the lead in that, they can definitely do some feedback and reviewing and editing. Paid consultants, you might want to consider those when you are writing a high dollar grant, such as a federal grant, and you really don't want to mess things up. Again, I wouldn't use a paid consultant unless you're writing maybe a grant that's over $30,000 to $40,000 and you really can afford to pay that consultant. There is an organization called Grant Ready Kentucky. It is a nonprofit organization, and they do provide some grant consultation free of charge. You might want to check in with them as well when you're writing your grants. Some things that I've found that saves me a lot of time when I'm grant writing are some online tools, Perplexity, Grammarly, and ChatGPT, and you probably have heard of those things. Really quickly, for those who haven't, Perplexity is a browser. It's like Google Chrome or Edge, and basically you just log into it and put in your search terms. So for example, this is a search that I did real quickly. I asked for information for the population in Kentucky between 2020 and 2025. And within seconds, I got all of this information. I got 4 or 5 new resources to research. I got a brief synopsis, an overview of that, and then I got related articles and all of these fun little graphs and some videos and stuff to share. So it kind of speeds the process along where you're not having to click through all of these internet searches. So that's a new one that I really like. Grammarly it's been around for a while. You can use Grammarly on your desktop in the background to edit all of your documents that you're working on, whether it's a Microsoft Word file or your email. It will check your spelling, your grammar, and give you edits. It's free, but you can buy a paid subscription to that, and it provides a lot more services. This is one that I use a lot daily, all the time. ChatGPT, I know it's kind of got a bad rap and some negative press on it, but I attended a training recently, and it was on AI, and the person that was giving instruction indicated that we need to get used to having AI as a coworker, and you need to bring them to work with you every day and think of them as an assistant. And so that's something that I've been trying to embrace a little bit more. This is an example of how I use ChatGPT in my everyday. I needed to write a quick email to library directors about a grant opportunity that was coming out. This highlighted portion right here that's yellow, this is the details that I put into ChatGPT, press entered, and I got a full-length, awesome email template that I could then work from and change some of the details and the wording to make it sound more like me. So that saved me a lot of time in my work, and that's something that you can use with your grants as well. You just want to make sure that if you do use AI to write your grant, you don't let them write the whole essay or grant proposal. I have seen some of those come across the grants management system, and you can tell that it's AI generated. It's not personalized. So yeah, you do want to personalize it and make sure that it sounds like an actual person is writing it, and that your proposal actually fits your needs and is specific to what you need. You want to make sure you don't copy the whole response. This could lead to copyright and plagiarism issues. And also AI can generate some false statements. So especially if you're using some research in your grant proposal, you need to make sure you double check those facts to make sure that they are true. So, all right, so locating funding. This is probably one of the most time-consuming things. We have created a spreadsheet that's available to libraries of all the grants that that libraries can apply for, not only from KDLA but from other funding sources. And I'm not going to take the time to go to that screen, but you have the QR code, and that is a tool that's in there. I post that on the directors listserv. I try to do that at least once a month when I update funding opportunities on there. And it down at the bottom, it has tabs where you can look at different categories, like bookmobile or literacy projects or programming grants. So it separates those things out. So that's something that I think is important for you guys. Also, if you're searching on your own for grant funding sources, make sure that you're including like foundations in your search. For example, the Reese Steele Foundation provides a lot of funding for libraries in Appalachia, specifically in Kentucky and Idaho. And we've had several libraries receive grants through them the past several years. Ohio Valley United Charities is another foundation that serves Northern Kentucky, and they have a grant that comes out usually in June. So, and they provide a lot of funding for nonprofit organizations. Make sure that you're aware of your businesses in your area that provide funding. I know LG&E has a community grant that's available in October and February. They fund a lot of projects in communities. Your Walmart grants, Target, Aldi's, almost every business, major chain business, will have a grant program. So KFC even had one, Kentucky Fried Wishes. I love the name of that grant. I thought it was so cool. So, but make sure that you're not counting those out. You can get funding for those as well. There's professional organizations, so like KPLA, ALA, they provide grants as well. Make sure that you get on their newsletters so that you get notifications of those grants. And then all of the federal grants opportunities for libraries comes through grants.gov. They have a newsletter as well that you can sign up for. And we also advertise those through the director's listserv. And I put those on the spreadsheet as well for you guys to keep up with. So some things that you want to do to make sure that your grant is funded or has a greater chance of being funded. We've already talked about this a little bit, but make sure that you're following your grant guidelines. That is the number one reason why federal grants get denied, is if there's anything out of line, they don't give you another opportunity to apply or change things. You want to make sure that your grant is organized, it's clear to read, the communication is clear. As librarians, we use a lot of fancy words and acronyms, and make sure that you're not including that jargon in your application, because a lot of times the panel reviewers that are reviewing those applications are not part of the library world, and so that makes it more difficult for them to understand. You really want to understand your funding organizations, their priorities, and the type of grant that you're writing for, so that you can change the style and tone to fit that application. You know, a grant that is requesting assistance for low-income families to help them with literacy issues might have a completely different style and tone than an academic federal grant that you're wanting funding to provide training for your, the whole state library staff or your library staff for certification purposes. That's going to be a different type of writing and style. And then you're going to want to have somebody outside of this process to review that proposal. I mean, you can spend 10 to 20 hours writing a grant proposal, and sometimes you just become immune to mistakes or how things are sounding. Having an outsider review that, they're able to come in with a different perspective and some different ideas. All right, so there are many applications require an organization profile, and this is your opportunity to make your organization shine. This is where you establish your credibility. So this is where you can highlight not only your population, but also some past and current projects that you're working on that shows that you can handle the project that you're applying for. You can highlight some staff experience, like so for example, our children's programmer has 5 years in uh, creating and sharing youth literacy programming. The director has 8 years experience in managing grant projects. Those are the kinds of details you can put in that organization profile. And you definitely can toot your own horn by adding some accomplishments or awards that your library has received. So I feel like we're going through a lot here really, really quickly. So is there any questions? Anybody need to jump in? Okay. All right. So we'll move on. Hopefully I didn't lose all of you guys. I know we're going fast and it's a lot. So, all right. So for goals, you want to make sure that your goals and your values are aligned with your funders' priorities and values. Because if they're not, it's not going to be a good fit for them or for you. Um, so when you establish your goals and objectives for your project or program, you need to make sure that they're SMART goals. So what that means is that your goals are specific, um, that you're going to do a certain amount of work in a certain amount of time, that they're measurable, like you're going to check out, 300 items in this amount of time. Are they achievable? You don't want to overpromise with your goals because your funding organization will recognize that and they're like, yeah, this is not going to work. They're not being realistic. And so that's a huge red flag for funding organizations. Again, you want your project to be realistic. Um, is it achievable? Is it something that is actually can be done? And then you want to make sure that it can be done in it's timely. That it can be done in the timeline that's given. So, all right, the need statement is really important. This is where you justify your project, and you really want to make sure that you focus on your beneficiaries. Who's going to really benefit from this project? And how is it going to impact their lives? And why do these beneficiaries need this? Um, Even if your library is dirt poor, you don't want to mention that your library is broke because they probably already know that, and it doesn't really show that you're very credible if you're talking about your finances, because it's not really about your organization's finances. It needs to really be about the project and the things that you're going to do for the community. Um, you also make sure that if you make a statement like, say Clark County, we want to provide computer classes for, this many people. This project is needed because, um, people don't have computer literacy skills. Okay, well, that's pretty general statement. You can try to find some research based on, okay, how many people really don't have literacy skills in your community or statewide, and try to work some research into those, or even some scenarios where patrons have come into the library and your staff is spending so much time with patrons working on very basic, simple computer skills, like how do you print off a document or how do you open up a Word document, things like that. So these are things that you can include in your needs statement that will make it um, more like there's a need. So um, so applications always ask for a detailed work plan, although it might be worded differently. So this is where that that planner comes in place to help you have your project, the design all worked out before you start writing. So, what resources are you going to need for your project? You need to think about that. So, are you going to need special equipment? Are you going to need special computer hardware, software? Do you need to hire staff? Are there special methods that you're going to use? For example, if you're going to institute some special curriculum that you're going to need to purchase to train people on, those kinds of things. And then you're going to focus on that implementation, like when is it going to be implemented? Where is it going to be in the library or in a partnering organization? And then who's going to carry out those activities? And this is where you can again highlight some of your staff strengths of, like, so and so is going to carry this out and they have this much experience, that kind of thing. A good plan always includes evaluation, and we'll talk about a little bit more about that in a minute. And then it also will address how you're going to disseminate your information. How are you going to tell others about your project? We talked a little bit about that as well. It's like, so if you do a project, it will put your application above others if you talk about, we're going to share what we learned from this project with other libraries, and this is how we're going to share that information. So when you're thinking about evaluation plan, I think we can get in the weeds sometimes. It's a little bit overwhelming to think about how we're measuring things. And sometimes we rely only on one measuring tool, and I don't know, sometimes it's not the best fit. So if you're wanting to measure knowledge gains, if you're doing like a computer literacy class, you're going to want to provide some assessments, like, and starting assessments, like this is where they started with their knowledge, and then this is where they ended. So that is a good metric to use in those types of situations. Surveys are really great if you want to gauge satisfaction and opinions of how your project's going. They're usually pretty easy to implement and to get feedback on those. Don't count out stories and experiences. Verbal feedback can be very, I think, it can be very good in application. It shows that you're willing to talk to the people who are involved in those projects and get their stories. And sometimes funders will want you to share those stories so that they can share pictures and stories on their website after the project is over, so that they can share these are the good things that we're doing in the world and for our community. Engagement is pretty easy to measure. If you want to see how engaged people are, basically take attendance. You can also look at completion rates. If this is an ongoing program, like a summer reading program, how many kids completed the summer reading program and signed up for it and completed it. And then you can also do usage. You can show, which is simple, looking at your web analytics. How many times did a person click on a pamphlet that you created that was online? Or how many times was a certain device that which purchased the grant funds checked out? Those kinds of things. Definitely make sure that you're including those in your proposals, especially when it's asked for, and make sure that you're paying close attention to those. And then you want to make sure too in your planning, like how is this metrics going to be shared, and how is it going to show the effectiveness of the project. So anytime you can show like from where you started and where you finished through a graph, charts, anything like that, that is helpful as well. And that's not really in the writing process, but it needs to be incorporated in your thinking process so that you can tell your story down the road. Like you can show the impact that their project's having, and that you can create guides and videos and webinars and things like this down the road when you disseminate this information. All right, funders like to see grant applications that involve partnerships, because that shows that you're working with your community organizations. just make sure that if you are working with a partner that you have their commitment before you write the application. That might involve sending out a commitment letter. And in the toolkit, there is some partnership letters that you can request their involvement in your project. You really want to make sure that you have what they're doing and their contributions written down, and it's all in writing before you apply. Don't wait until afterwards. And you want to address also, what is the impact going to be with working with this partnership? How are they going to make this project successful, and how are they going to help ensure that it is ongoing? All right, so you've written a great application and you've been awarded. Woohoo! So the first thing you want to do is you want to email that organization who gave you money. There is nothing better than to a funding organization to get a simple appreciation letter or email. It could be handwritten. That acknowledges that you're excited about the project and you're establishing a relationship with them. You want to make sure that you review your grant contract and agreements right away, and so that will help you manage your grant. There might be some reporting guidelines, there might be financial guidelines that they need you to follow through on, and you need to make sure that you manage your grant well, because if you don't, and they are constantly have to contact you about reports and finances and receipts and things like that, that's not establishing and keeping a good relationship, and decreases the likelihood that you'll be funded in the future. You want to stay organized and document your progress so that you can have those good reports and give them good feedback and information as they ask for it. You want to make sure that you're engaging your stakeholders and beneficiaries and community members along the way, not just like afterwards and at the beginning, but along the way. And I think the libraries do this very well through their social media, with recognizing their funding organizations, and showing the programs that are being done, and that's a great way to do that, engaging your community, but also sending emails occasionally to your stakeholders. Hey, I just want to tell you, this program, we did this last night, we had this many people here and they really enjoyed it. Again, thank you for partnering with us on this project. Those are all positive things that you can do to make a good experience, not only for you, but also for your funding organization. And then, you know what, not every grant can be funded. It's sometimes there's limited funds. So even if you didn't get funded, you should still send an email thanking them for the opportunity to apply. And it's also a great opportunity to ask for feedback about your grant application. Like, is there anything about my application that we could have changed, or the project that we could have changed to have made it more competitive? And you might get feedback and you might not, but that simple gesture of reaching out is good common practice. And then always stick with it. If you can't find funding through that one application, keep applying for other different grants. And some things that I found helpful, just in general, is you want to continue to stay organized and save your grants, because a lot of the times the information you put in a grant application can be reused, so you're not starting from all the way, completely over. And you want to continue to network in your communities to build relationships with organizations, businesses, other nonprofit relationships, to seek out partnerships for projects. But also, a lot of times you'll become aware of grant opportunities through those relationships and networking. And then continually, I suggest that you continually do professional development and seek out training regarding grant writing tips, because like other fields, grants change, expectations change over time, and it's just good to keep up on that practice, especially if you're the one that is in charge of making sure your library has funding. So, and that is it for Grants Made Easy. I know it's a lot of information. Again, the toolkit, if you go to this QR code, the toolkit has some resources in there to help you. Like I said, some letter templates to reach out to your funding organizations or to a partner that you want to partner with on a project. It has the all of the grant opportunities available to Kentucky libraries, and it has that planner in that. So, and if you need more resources, you want to see more stuff in there, let me know, and I can see what I could do to add that. So, but is there any questions? Does anybody have any questions about a particular project they're working on that need some help with?
Dena, as you were talking, I think you shared so much good information, but it was reminding me of a coworker that I had one time that used to say, "Don't get mad, get data," and it was making me think about, the grant application process and how helpful it is if you be very mindful of answering the specific question and give as much, like you were saying. Data storytelling and really giving the organization that's providing the funding the information that they need to distinguish your application from other people. So I thought that was really great.
Thanks for that feedback. Yeah, I think storytelling could be done a lot of different ways, and there's a lot of different training opportunities coming up about that. I'm not an expert in that field, but I know that there are some trainings. So make sure that you're on the director's listserv and looking for emails from Trisha and Alicia about upcoming trainings about that, about storytelling and trying to establish a great narrative about your library.
Has anybody that's with us right now tried the Submittable, the new grants management system, or have any other questions based on what Dena shared so far? There's so much good information out on our website as well, and the toolkit is wonderful. It has so much good resources in there as well, but just curious if anybody has gotten in there yet, created a profile, or had any specific questions or things to share about their experience. It is a new system, and we do encourage you to participate, and of course contact Dena with any questions and feedback as well.
Yeah, Rhonda said that she's used it. I've seen a couple of Rhonda's grants already. So it's definitely, we're learning how to manage it as well. We just got access to it 1st of June, and so we had to hurry and build our grant applications into it and roll those out very quickly. So there's been a learning process with us as well. A few errors along the way, but we're learning, and I think able to get those figured out pretty quickly. So thanks, Leanne. Thanks for coming.
All right, well, we want to say thank you to everybody for joining us today. Feel free, if you still have a question, to hop in and add it in the chat box, or you're welcome to turn your mic on and ask out loud. As we're closing here, we want to make sure that we acknowledge LSTA sponsorship. KDLA is supported by the Library Sciences and Technology Act, and we thank the Institute of Museum and Library Services for sponsorship of this webinar. This webinar has been recorded and will be available as an archived webinar as well. We encourage you to complete the survey. The link has been added to the chat as well. It's also in the class Collaborate screen. When you close out of the webinar, you should see it there. We do also ask that you complete the assessment question. Everyone who participated in the live program will receive a certificate of attendance available on your learner dashboard within a week of the program. And we thank you all for attending. Um, Looks like that's it. There's no additional comments in the chat box. We do encourage you to reach out to Dena if you have additional questions about the grants management system. And again, we thank you for attending.